playoffs, and the boys soccer team won their first round playoff today, 2-1.
All right.
I believe they play the second round on Saturday, and then the girls soccer team plays on Monday, and the girls field hockey plays on Tuesday. Got it right. Anything I'm missing beyond that at the moment? The football team, football teams, but unfortunately the final home game was canceled on Saturday because the other team was not able to field the team. They had some COVID issues, so they weren't able to field the team, which is actually okay because we have a few guys dinged up and they can heal up. In 2 weeks they'll play in their first playoff game. All right, is that going to be a home game, Joe?
Yes.
It will be a home game. Right. So.
Yeah, they're seated second in their division.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the girls soccer is ranked first.
Yes.
Boys soccer third, is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
And the girls field hockey, they have a seating?
Second.
Second as well, so.
All right.
All is well in Bronco land.
That's right.
You just changed the heck out of it.
Let's all knock on wood.
Joe, thank you. And to the coaches, congratulations, navigating this in the midst of the pandemic and get everybody healthy and staying healthy is quite a chore, so really job well done. And also, since Joe McCord is here, I want to give him a shout out because he's been conducting tours for new families. And if you recall, we allowed kindergarten and first grade parents to come in if they want to see the building, because last year, as kindergarten parents, we never let them in the building, so that we had many parents who had never been in the inside of the building where they're sending their children to. So Joe's been the Julian McCoy of the Bronxville School last several weeks, and we had how many, Joe, altogether?
We have been over 100 families in the school the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. So there was a lot of interest, and very much appreciated. And I know Ann is in town, they're just doing new families that have come in as well. So it's been really quite nice. With that, I think that's it. Now we can get to the enrollment report, Connie, if you don't mind. So I just thought I'd give you a quick update on where we are with our enrollment compared to what the demographic report had said to us, kind of comparison. So you can see those are the numbers at each grade level currently compared to the projected numbers. It's not that far off. I think the projections are actually within 3% overall, which is pretty good. But we're down slightly from projected at K5, 641. A little bit in the middle school, 394, and almost right where we anticipated in high school at 534. So currently in the district we have 1,569 students, while there was a projected 1,617. So let's go to the next slide, Connie, so you can start seeing, well, I'll give you the class size breakout first, then I'll give you kind of a 5-year trend to look at enrollment. But in the elementary level, you can see the number of sections compared to the number of students we have in each grade level. Our class size is very favorable, with an average overall at the elementary school of 21.1 students. But you can see, where we are on that end. So we're doing fine. Middle school breakdown. Next, I know there's a lot there, but what we tend to try to look at is how many classes are in the distribution. So less than 15 students, on the right side you can see that. Less than 15 students in a class, anywhere from 15 to 19, 20 to 24, or 25 to 29, or how many are 30 plus. Unfortunately, we have very few approaching 25 to 29 or 30 plus, really just the chorus group, which tends to be high. And we have a singleton French class that's high. This is just not, there's enough students for one class, but not enough to break it into two classes. So overall, it's very favorable. And then you can see the frequency breakdown as well. How many are less than 15, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 29, or 30 plus. Nothing really 30 plus other than phys ed or performing arts class. In the 25 to 29, we tend to get higher numbers, occasionally AP sections, because there's one AP section oftentimes. So you see those numbers in that 25 to 29 range. But overall, again, I think the staff has done a good job of trying to balance out the classes reasonable. And we could give it kind of a historical breakdown of where class size was at the high school. And the final slide I just wanted to show you was kind of a 5-year trend of where our enrollment was and where it currently is. As you know, and as the demographic report anticipated, we are trending down somewhat in our enrollment from a high, at least in the last 5 years, in 17, 18 of 1657 overall, down to what we currently have is 1597. I do anticipate, based on, again, on the demographic report, that trend will continue to go down slightly over the next 4 or 5 years. It coincides with the number of live births in Westchester. I think it's happening all around us, not just to us. But there's something to keep in mind on. It's also the reason if you recall, when we were doing the bond, we had some additional classrooms that we were anticipating building, and we took those off the plan because of the demographic report, and some of this data does support that decision.
Well, if you take the elementary, because that's, obviously it feeds into the upper school, so you obviously got that decreasing almost 11% over that period of time. So if I fast forward that group, and what I remembered was middle school is kind of stable, and then the high school you usually have kind of anywhere from 10, 20 kids leave private school. I mean, if those numbers start getting pretty low.
They do, but we do get people moving to high school as well, Lance. That's why if you notice in the high school numbers, they haven't really dropped. In fact, they've gone up a little bit. But that's that bubble going through as well.
Yeah, that really big class.
Yeah, but the number of students who perhaps go to private school or religious school, whatever, or move out, we do tend to almost equalize that same number coming in. So that's not been a huge concern for us. It's more about just the attrition because class sizes are smaller coming up.
Yeah.
So when is the bubble graduate?
What's the largest class? Is it
145
juniors? 145. Yeah, 145. Most of the other classes are in 130, or in the elementary school now they're, I think, they're hovering around 110, 115, somewhere around there. But it's going to be a drop, there's no doubt.
It's not a lot of movement.
Not terrible. No, it's not terrible. No.
And I think we talked a year ago that you really almost have to have substantial change in order to impact the class size.
Yeah, because it never divides evenly.
It never
You know,
does. Right.
you can get 5 students less in first grade and maybe 7 in second grade, and it's not a full class either way.
Right.
So we're going to try to keep an eye on that and try to be fiscally responsible, but also hit the class sizes that we desire as well. So that's the enrollment report, and that's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks.
Rachel, Dr. Kelly.
Hi, yes. Good evening, everybody. We have a relatively short personnel agenda this evening. I have for you to consider a elementary leave for the purpose of childcare, as well as a couple of unanticipated teacher aide resignations, and we've been able to hire one to replace that, and we've gained an efficiency. We're not going to hire a second to replace one of those resignations, which is good news because the kids have made enough progress where we felt we could really absorb that, which is really exciting. We also have a few more substitute teachers, which will be very helpful. And then this is the month we put before you the co-curricular advisors, so those are all the clubs, as well as our first look at the winter coaches. You'll see a couple of the clubs we're not running this year, but we do have some new ones. And then some of the, given our choral teacher is out on leave, those have not started yet, but we do anticipate they will start when she's back. So that's why you see the TBDs. So you have before you resolutions A through G.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Dan?
A lot going on in the finance and facilities world.
At the moment, only July is closed thus far, as we're facilitating both the internal and the independent audits at the same time. And those should be ready for the November meeting. Obviously, the July and also August results will not include any activity related to the September 1 flood. However, we do have some early reads on a few expenditure accounts. Health benefits and salaries are somewhat favorable at this point, as the impact of staff turnover, and I think partially in response to reduced enrollment. We have probably a total down, Rachel, of maybe between 1 and 2 FTEs, which equates to a little salary savings as well.
Because as I recall, Dan, we budgeted flat,
We did budget flat, but
Okay.
actual
but the actual
Yeah.
we're running to,
Actual,
Two or
we're running
three
between 1 and
Okay.
2 lower.
2.
Let's see. And we are seeing an additional pressure on the budget in terms of special ed outplacements. You know, a shift of 1 student, just because of the nature of some of these placements, can be a great shift, and you know, we're equipped to deal with that, and we are. Things will be a little foggy for a while, as we are in negotiations with the teachers union, through which roughly 50% of our district-wide expenses are incurred through that contract. So any settlement in that contract could have a huge impact either way. If and when the contract settles, there will be much more clarity in how the overall budget will fare this year. Connie, do you want to put the flood update slide up?
sure. So as you do that, is there any questions from the board members about the tuition expenditure number? Just wanted to make sure that was,
No,
that was new to you guys.
It was cleared up
Okay.
by email today. That was very helpful.
Sure, and
Yes.
you know, I think probably on both a population basis and a dollar basis, I think traditionally we've been very low compared to other districts because we service so many in-house.
Yes.
Mhm. Thank you.
I wanted to give the board a financial update on flood. This is going to be pretty close to where the final expenditures come in on flood recovery. The biggest expense was probably floors, and that's about a little over $400,000 worth of floors. All replacements, with the exception of the main gym, will be poured floors. We're hoping that maybe that'll withstand water better. We had a couple that were floating floors and literally floated. Aside from that, the labor-intensive things, dewatering and cleaning, and also demolition of the main and gym and the blue gym floors, those were pretty expensive. But the interesting thing about this is the flood impact of 800,000 or 850. We are expecting insurance proceeds to help us out somewhat. If you remember, we were covered by a FEMA policy for 500,000 for the building and 500,000 for the contents. There was not a significant loss of contents. So we're hoping for a significant building loss recovery as we are submitting claims in excess of that limit. The portion of the insurance that was dropped was coverage beyond $1 million. It was an excess policy. As you remember, the premium for that excess policy was approaching $500,000. And the current flood loss would not have attached at that level of coverage. So even if we paid the $500,000 of premium, we would have gotten nothing out of that with this flood, which is why the board made, one of the reasons the board made the decision that it.
So Dan, based on what you're seeing now, we'll file for FEMA for $500,000. Is there any possibility we would get more, or is it?
No,
It's
no.
gonna be capped at five.
The only real contents loss was the guidance furniture.
Oh,
And
okay.
believe it or not, FEMA considers the guidance office the basement because it's a little lower
Mhm.
than the C and D wings,
Mhm.
and they do not cover for anything in a basement.
Okay.
There
So,
was, sorry, go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
There was some question around FEMA not covering things twice.
We're waiting to see, you know, so I didn't put up, we're getting $500,000 back.
Yeah.
I've said we filed for over $500,000.
Got it.
So we'll, you know, as soon as I get word of what we're getting back, I will let the board know.
Got it.
And Aaron has been instructed, no wood furniture.
Right.
So then, the source of funds, if you were just to kind of do high level right now, how do you see us funding these expenditures?
Well, the board approved a $614,000 transfer from the insurance reserve. So that will cover, you know, most of it. Any insurance proceeds beyond that will cover the rest. In my opinion, I think we'll get enough to cover the rest and might be able to replenish at least a portion of that insurance reserve transfer.
Dan, can you remind me what we're paying for this base FEMA coverage?
$12,000.
Amazing. So,
Good deal?
yes, a good deal. And financially, I wasn't here, but what a great decision not to have bought the excess policy.
Yep.
Because this was a terrible flood.
Now, if I think about it, we probably should have made that decision a year earlier, but we were, you know, we were hesitant to.
Right.
We were hopeful it would
Yeah.
make a difference if we had the pumps.
Right.
And it did.
And it did.
And it did.
On
It made a
insurance,
huge
you know,
difference.
No,
there's-
insurance, yes.
The difference between having 5 feet in the building and having, you know, an average of 6 inches is night and day.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Even
Or
if,
about $4 million.
even if we get, even if we get 100,000 or 200,000 from FEMA under our base coverage, we've won.
Yeah, in the current year.
In a really big way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Are the gyms gonna be ready for?
Blue Gym, I was gonna, you jumping ahead. I have to say, but I'm gonna leave you waiting.
Okay.
You know, we wanted something more, so I have a few financial action items. A copier lease, 2 copiers were damaged. We're in the last year of the lease. It makes a lot of sense to just replace them all as they're all failing. We can do that now because they're on New York State contract, and we can keep our payments the same. To me, it's a no-brainer. Everybody will be ecstatic in all the offices. So that's A. B, we have non-resident students accepted, 12 non-faculty student, faculty children paying tuition, 27 children of faculty students, 5 of which are paying tuition, for a total of 39 students, incidentally generating $336,000 in revenue, which is favorable to the budget. The budget was about $300,000, so that's good news, and that will be reflected in the August financial report. C, we're approving out-of-district transportation contract with Royal Coach through the BEP Consortium. There are 99 students that we send to private schools outside of Bronxville. We are required by law to provide transportation to private schools within 15 miles of Bronxville. There are a few special ed students included as well, of which there's no geographic limit. If we find a special ed placement program 50 miles a day, we would transport that child each day 50 miles. Let's see.
Nurses.
And and also I was talking to Mike, and the finance committee is going to go in depth on out-of-district transportation probably at the November meeting. We haven't really done a deep dive since maybe 2012, 2013, so it's always good to do a deep dive every few years. And lastly, not second to lastly, there's a contract with an additional firm to provide substitute nurses, RBO staffing of White Plains. Substitutes of any kind are very hard to find these days, so this is just another firm that could provide substitute nurses in case our main firm is unable to do so. And then we have, of course, the foundation donation, $434 for sound systems for middle school classrooms, which have proven very effective at the elementary level. When teachers are wearing masks and students are wearing masks, that kind of amplification is a game changer. So we've decided to expand it to the middle school, and the foundation is very supportive. And as always, I recommend we accept this with gratitude. So I would like to move those 5 action items.
Just one question
Sure.
on the action items. The one line item that jumped out at me, and that's due to my own inexperience with this, what's the copiers? It's a big number. I imagine this is in line with what we've done in the past years.
Yes.
And it's for a large number of them, and you get services for maintenance on all of that.
We get,
Just
not
give me a
only,
little context.
sure, I think there's 16 or 17 copiers spread throughout the building. There's 2 really high volume copiers in a copier center. I think they're 80 or 90 copies a minute.
Got it?
We actually have an on-site during school days, an on-site technician from
Got it.
1 o'clock to say 5 or 6 o'clock who services the machines and also does copying jobs for teachers. And then all the office copiers, which, you know, we say copier, but they're really networked printers now. I think there's more printing done on these than copiers. They're all color. You know, I can remember a decade ago, we were paying more for this, and they were black and white and slower.
Got it. Okay. Perfect.
So I wasn't sure, that individual that they mentioned in the contract is part of the
Yes.
cost? Oh, I thought that was an additional,
No.
okay.
And the maintenance and the service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, this is a great deal.
Okay.
The same, the last 2 times we bid, Atlantic, tomorrow's office, they've been in here for probably 15 or 20 years. They've won the direct bid by, you know, probably a multiple of 15 or 20% because they know it the best. And now that they're on state contract, it just makes it so much easier.
Got it.
And for the nursing, you know, kind of the backup person, or I guess firm, is that because we've had issues with the primary provider, or this is just being really?
These are really their field trips and things of that nature, and
Yeah,
substitutes.
And substitutes. It has been difficult to
Okay.
secure substitutes. A lot of the substitute nurses to these firms prefer to go to the hospital setting because the rate is much better.
Field trips.
So we wanted to be able to expand our pool of options.
Any other questions?
Well, I had questions on transportation, but that's why I was emailing Dan.
Okay, so you're gonna
we'll deal with that.
Pick that up in November and come back to the board shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I don't think that was.
But we are transporting these kids.
Yeah, yeah.
We have
I
to
just
go.
wanted to say, understand the metrics and some things on it.
Yeah, because we're in year 2 of a 3-year contract, right?
Yes.
It makes all the sense in the world to have that conversation.
Okay.
Okay. Connie, I look to you. Can we do them all at the same time, or do we have to do them all individually?
No, we can do them together, that would be financial action items A
A
through
through
E.
E. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Mickey?
So moved.
Second.
Second from Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, Dan, very much.
Thanks on foundation
Now.
too.
Yeah, and thanks to the foundation. Oh, and do we expect a similar thing in high school, or have we already done high school?
No, high school's not done yet. I believe the original grant was to do middle school and high school. But then after speaking with the foundation, they asked us to revise it. So we said, let's just do middle school to start
Okay.
first.
Okay.
It might be something for us to consider down the line.
I think they hear better than high school. We might consider. Dan, back to you for facilities.
Sure, facilities. The project is about 99% complete. We are suffering from supply chain issues with doors and hardware to the point where we are actually actively trying to find vendors for the contractor. Their supplier is not coming through for them. The waterproofing issue with the guidance edition was completed about 2 weeks ago. So, you know, we'll see if that works, but it was substandard work that they wrap those up in a month or so. Flood recovery, as I mentioned, is just about complete. All spaces are available, with the exception of the multipurpose room in the south playroom. We had originally secured a contractor who we worked with in the past and who also did the rugs in the A-wing, you know, the boardroom, but they're not moving fast enough. So we're getting a proposal from the contractor who's finishing up the blue gym and the main gym. And the reason we want to get a proposal from them is because those gyms are just about done. We were hoping for basketball season, you know, November 15th, to get those done. The blue gym, we're going to be in on Monday.
Awesome.
And the main gym a week later, November 1st.
That's great.
So getting, you know, the emergency declaration and getting Methusic in early, who is actually, they're working on, I don't know, hundreds of gyms throughout the region. And we got on their list because we acted fast. And they worked fast.
And they knew our measurements.
Yeah, they have our file.
Repeat customer.
Repeat.
Yeah, priority.
Because we'll be back again.
Hopefully not.
So our kids will be trying out for basketball on our own floors.
That's great.
And the blue gym, I might add, the floor is back to blue.
Yeah,
So it's now officially a blue gym again.
Back to the roots. And there's no facilities action items.
Thank you very much. I think that then takes us to item 8 on other actions, where we have 2 policies. The first is the second read on the athletic policy. Just noticed we, through some great editing of a variety of people, have made it nice and short and sweet. And then the next one is the first reading on the annual district meeting and budget vote, which I just saw one change on that one. Is that correct?
That's all.
That one
That's
paragraph?
one. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, got it.
That's the one change. Recommended by our attorney.
Got it, okay. And it made immediate sense to remove those words. So, let's just call for a motion since it's a second read on the athletics policy. May I have a motion?
Before you get to the motion, I reread it and I read really carefully this time. You know, I guess it's coming down from the state, and the state basically said that middle schoolers can, you know, participate in sports. I still, you know, I know I'm in the minority here. I still think it's wrong and not appropriate for middle schoolers to play at the high school level.
Period, full stop.
Except it's the only reason I think they should be playing in the high school varsity teams is if it's to fill the team hours. Like we don't have enough players. But I think it's called high school sports for a reason. And I think you're taking an opportunity away from, let's say, a late developer, student, athlete, and maybe there's somebody in the 7th, 8th grade that's just a little bit more coordinated at that particular point in time, and that person then takes a position away from somebody that's, you know, been playing the sport for a while and hopes to play, let's say, a junior, senior. And then here comes, you know, somebody younger underneath, and you'll never know if that person was going to develop into a starter, let's say, or someone that contribute to a team because they're not going to get the playing time. So I reread this and, you know, I saw things that, you know, were added and I liked all the changes, but I think we really got to live by what was written here. And really the thing that got me was looking back after the year's over, if we do have middle schoolers that do graduate to the, and I'm concentrating on the varsity versus the JV because I think that's a little bit different. But at the varsity level, you're really dealing with upperclassmen that maybe only have 1 or 2 years to really play and participate in most instances. That there is that look back, and if we do have somebody in 7th grade that does go onto a team, that you really do the look back and say, was this appropriate? And if we do have situations with a coach that look back wasn't what we expected, I think something has to occur, and that was the situation.
Yeah, no, well said, Mike, and I agree with everything you've said. And, you know, for me, coming to New York, this was all new. In Jersey, they don't allow it. You have 4 years of eligibility period, so it's not something even comes into the discussion, which I personally prefer as well. But your point is well taken, and I think, you know, one of the things we tried to emphasize in the policy this time is really having some measures in place to control the middle school students who might be considered playing up, and putting, unfortunately for Joe, but putting a lot more authority resting with the AD.
Yeah.
You know, if you notice in there, the person has to be recommended by phys ed department and or ultimately the AD. The decision ultimately has to be approved by the AD. So I'm hoping, you know, the possibility that coaches make decisions that are not necessarily in the best interest of all their kids get stopped before it happens.
Go ahead.
The only other point I was going to bring up that I forgot, you were 2 points. One point is, if a student is that unbelievable athlete, there are other avenues
Yes.
that they can show that. And there's so many club sports and travel teams that if there's an athlete at that kind of level, that's probably what they're
Yep.
doing.
Yep.
So again, that kind of takes away why do they have to give that extra year to the high school team. And then there is a comment in here that's, you know, that it's really, I guess it's Joe's responsibility, not only physically but emotionally, are they prepared to play for this team? And me as a parent, having to stuff their 8th graders, spending a lot of time with a lot of seniors,
Not so good.
you know, I just don't think that's, me as a parent, I probably wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
And I think that piece of this really has to be thought through when you think about moving students out.
Good, thank you.
I'll follow Tom.
I raised in the exchanges, I think, they're different sports, okay? Basketball is different than football or track and field. I mean, there's a limited venue in which that sport can occur meaningfully. And I think that there should be some delineation between field sports, football, soccer, lacrosse, cross country, whatever, baseball, where there is more room for participation and the coaches should be held to that standard by the athletic director. And let's not forget that, you know, colleges look for students who are engaged to participate. They are looking for, they want their facilities, they want an active student body that uses the stuff they have to offer. And it's important for our students in the college process to show, like, I did participate in this, I did participate in that. So there's importance to it beyond the, the lessons that are learned and the sports as an extension of the classroom, all of which I very much believe in. But there's a practical thing that these things are important for as part of the life beyond the high school and where you land in college. And I think the guidance counselors would agree with that. And I got a thumbs up back there. And I think it's important to delineate between indoor and field sports.
No contradiction, I would agree with what you two just said. I would hope that this becomes, that students moving up become the exception, the special case, and that there be a good, strong, affirmative reason why a particular student is moving up. Not just, well, we think it's okay, or there's a spot to fill. There should be, for emotional, physical, variety of reasons, there should be a very good, strong reason why a particular student would move up. And if there is, then the student should. But if there isn't, then we shouldn't just open the door and have it. And I agree, there's going to be a huge amount of burden put on the athletic department to make that decision. But I think if it becomes clear over time, students and parents will understand.
It truly is a shift in culture, and I appreciated Joe's additions to this committee, including the fact that of having these meetings with the coaches to reset with them, and the look back is such an important part of it, because when you're trying to shift that needle you can't always get it perfect on your first time out. And so that's why we said we really wanted that look back to see how this got applied as we went through that first year. Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that, may I have a motion to approve the athletic policy at second reading?
So moved.
Second, please? I'll second it. May I?
Typically presidents don't.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. So thanks to the committee that worked hard on this to bring it to
Yes.
fruition, and to Joe, who put up with this. And then the next one is on, the budget. Any questions on that procedural policy? Okay, we'll have a chance to talk about it again at our next meeting, so we don't have any motion. I have a motion to approve the first reading of the 1050 annual district meeting budget vote.
So moved.
Second? Susan, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Okay, committee reports, as we mentioned, we had a first run of the audit report, the internal audit report Tuesday, whatever day of the week it is. We will be back again and bring that to the November meeting. Mike, was there a finance committee lately? Recently?
No,
Yeah.
we'll probably have one.
Yeah, we'll try and get one in before the next meeting.
Okay. Anything, and a facilities meeting? No? Okay. We covered the meetings. Our November long-range planning workshop, we already canceled since we had such a robust one in October. So the next time we'll be together is on the 18th of November. And with that, we'll open up for any.
But before you do that, there's, I think you need a
Yes, I have
resolution to
it right
change
up there.
the date for the
Got it.
February meeting.
Okay.
Connie snuck in there.
We are
Just to
moving-
change the date of the
Yeah, that's
February
right.
meeting from Thursday to Wednesday.
Got it. You're right.
Wednesday the
I printed
16th.
before.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Thank you for that. Do we have any questions from the public or in the queue? Hearing none, seeing none?
Rest is always wanted November 8th.
May I have a motion to adjourn, Mickey?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right.
Thanks,
We're done.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Joe, good luck.